Have you ever felt that quiet tension in a room, the kind you can't name, but it wraps around you like static in the air? Faces smile, words flow, yet something beneath them moves differently. Most people chase to be seen. The wise learn to see. What if true power isn't in speaking, but in noticing what others miss? Stay a moment. Let's look deeper. As we step into the first chapter, imagine walking into a room where every face smiles, yet something underneath feels slightly off, like a whisper beneath the noise. You sense it, but can't name it. Most people would ignore that feeling, bury it beneath a nervous laugh or a rehearsed line. But that feeling is not confusion. It's intuition asking for clarity. It's your mind trying to see what your emotions are hiding. There's a blindness most people carry that no eye test can detect. It doesn't blur your sight or dim your hearing. It clouds something deeper, the truth behind what you see. You think you're perceiving reality, but you're only seeing your reflection in it, distorted by feeling. Anger turns shadows into enemies. Insecurity turns silence into rejection. Fear paints the neutral into the threatening. That's how the untrained mind works, always projecting, rarely perceiving. Modern life feeds this blindness. We're taught to react quickly, to prove ourselves loudly, to interpret every glance as judgment. Someone disagrees with you and your heart races. Someone ignores you and you feel invisible. You walk into a room wondering, do they like me? Instead of what is actually happening here. You speak and then wonder, did I sound confident? Instead of what did that silence mean? It's a constant chase to be understood while never truly seeing. The Stoics offered another way. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are pained by any external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it." That single thought is enough to break the illusion, because when you remove judgment, you remove distortion. When you stop assigning meaning to every flicker of expression, every pause, every tone, the fog lifts. Your mind becomes a mirror, still, reflective, honest. In that stillness, clarity appears. Let me paint a moment. A young man walks into his first high-level meeting. His pulse hammers. He feels small, out of place. His palms sweat. His thoughts scatter. Throughout the meeting, he reads every neutral expression as rejection, every silence as proof of his inadequacy. When he leaves, he's convinced they thought he wasn't sharp enough. But here's what he missed. One of the seniors had leaned forward as he spoke, interested. Another had jotted notes, a sign of value. The leader had paused before replying, not to dismiss him, but to consider his point. None of that reached him. His emotions blurred his vision. Now imagine the Stoic in his place. The Stoic enters the same room, but differently. He doesn't rush to speak. He doesn't wonder if he's liked. He observes. He notices who interrupts whom, who sits slightly turned toward power, who avoids the eyes of authority, who laughs too loud to hide unease, who stays quiet yet commands attention. He isn't guessing motives. He's simply seeing what's there, without the noise of his own feelings. That's what detachment really means. Not cold indifference, but disciplined distance. It's the art of stepping back from the storm of your first reaction and asking, is this truth or projection? Someone glances away while you're talking. Instantly your mind whispers, they're bored. But maybe they remembered a task. Maybe they're anxious. Maybe you're wrong. The Stoic doesn't assume. The Stoic verifies. Epictetus said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our interpretation of them." When you stop reacting, you begin to see. The paradox is this. The more you think about yourself, the less you see others. You become trapped in the mirror of your mind, chasing your reflection while reality slips away. But when you step outside of yourself, the world opens up. You start hearing what isn't said. You catch the hesitation before a lie, the tremor before a confession, the shift of tone that betrays discomfort. You begin to understand human nature not through guessing, but through observation. Observation begins where emotional investment ends. Picture yourself entering a room without the need to impress, defend, or belong. You just observe. You notice laughter bending towards certain voices. You notice alliances forming wordlessly. You notice one person speaking last, and when they do, the room stills. That's quiet power, not domination, but comprehension. To move through the world like water, fluid, aware, deliberate. That's mastery. So how do you build it? Begin with silence. In your next gathering, resist the urge to speak. Watch, listen, observe who gets cut off and who gets heard. See how posture changes when someone powerful walks in. Let silence be your study. Then practice non-reactivity. When someone makes a passive remark, don't flinch, don't laugh nervously, don't mirror them. Just hold it up to the light like a coin and ask, what does this say about them, not about me? The Stoics called this apatheia, not apathy, but freedom from emotional disturbance. It's not about not feeling, it's about feeling without being led. And in a world addicted to reaction, calmness becomes rare. Rare things have value. People feel your steadiness even if they can't name it. They trust what they sense but can't explain. You start noticing more. Who laughs toward whom? Who insults to feel tall? Who always needs the last word and why? You don't judge, you simply register. And because you see the truth without noise, you act only when it serves something higher. The Stoic doesn't speak to be heard. He speaks when silence would be less effective, because words, once released, are arrows. And if your hand trembles with emotion, your aim will always miss. Detachment is not withdrawal, it's clarity. It's the quiet strength that lets you see through the fog while everyone else is shouting inside it. It's not manipulation, it's discipline. It's the art of holding your ground so firmly that no chaos can push you off balance. People will mistake your calm for coldness. Let them. True presence isn't loud, it's magnetic. Those who see clearly are trusted. Because clarity feels safe. It can't be bribed, swayed, or deceived. And when your presence carries that steadiness, you make others feel seen without ever needing to speak much. Your attention becomes sovereign. So ask yourself this: are you willing to give up the comfort of emotional reaction for the power of quiet perception? Are you ready to stop performing for the noise and start perceiving the patterns beneath it? Because the moment you do, the world changes. Not louder, quieter, not more confusing, simpler. You realize the chaos was never out there. It lived in your own head. And when that storm settles, when your inner sky clears, you finally begin to see. And here's where the journey deepens, because the next person you must learn to observe with the same clarity is yourself. Moving into the second chapter, imagine this. You've spent your whole life walking beside yourself, but have never truly seen the person at your side. You think you know who you are, your voice, your humor, your strength, but what if all you've known is the mask? What if the person you think you are and the one others experience are two very different beings standing in the same body? Most people live under that illusion. They confuse familiarity with understanding. They mistake comfort for truth. You tell yourself you're confident, but perhaps what others feel is arrogance. You believe you're funny, but maybe your laughter cuts sharper than you think. You assume you're respected, yet many only endure you in silence. And here lies the hidden tragedy. If you never step outside yourself, you'll never know who you've become. The Stoics understood this long before the modern world began to speak of self-awareness. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." But there's another side to his wisdom. We also imagine ourselves better, kinder, wiser than we are. That illusion is comforting, but it's also what keeps us blind. The greatest journey, the Stoics said, is not the one that leads outward to glory, but inward to honesty. To walk that path, you must first learn to observe yourself as a stranger would. Now imagine this. For 1 week, there's a camera following you. Every movement, every glance, every tone of voice captured. The footage isn't meant to judge or expose, it's meant to study. How would you act if you knew your every word would be analyzed by someone who doesn't know your story, your excuses, or your intentions? Would you still make that small, cutting joke disguised as humor? Would you interrupt as often? Would you still fake a laugh to avoid feeling invisible? That discomfort you feel as you picture this, that tightening in your chest, is awareness being born, because awareness rarely arrives gently. It walks in like a storm and asks you to face yourself without flattery. When you observe yourself from a distance, something begins to shift. You notice that your confident tone is rushed, that your calm posture hides stiffness, that your laughter in groups is more performance than joy. You start to realize that much of your life has been theater, and you've been both actor and audience, clapping for your own disguise. But don't mistake this realization for failure. It's freedom. The Stoics didn't teach self-punishment, they taught precision. Self-observation is clarity without cruelty. Marcus Aurelius said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." That discomfort you feel when you finally see your own flaws, that's not the end of confidence, it's the beginning of transformation. Let me tell you a story. There was a woman named Sarah, strong, outspoken, quick with answers. Everyone called her reliable. She believed it. One day, after a group project collapsed, she overheard 2 colleagues talking. One said, "Sarah doesn't listen, she just wants to be right." The words hit her like a knife between the ribs. Her first instinct was to defend herself, to call them ungrateful, to remind herself how much she'd done. But that night, lying awake, she replayed the meeting, again and again. And slowly, she saw it. She had interrupted, dominated, dismissed, not out of confidence but fear. She wasn't leading, she was performing strength to hide insecurity. So she started journaling. Not about others' faults, but about her own tone, her own habits, her own patterns. Each night she wrote like an observer watching a character in a novel. The more she wrote, the clearer the truth became. Over time she changed, not for approval, but for peace. Because what she wanted most was to be someone she could respect, not someone she had to justify. That's what self-observation does. It frees you from the exhausting task of defending a false image. It replaces shame with alignment, yet most people never do it. They live inside their minds like prisoners guarding the walls of identity. They never stop to ask, is the way I speak healing or harming? Is the energy I bring calming or chaotic? Do people feel lighter or heavier after I leave the room? They don't ask because the answers might hurt, but the Stoic knows that pain is a teacher disguised as truth. So what if you made it a daily ritual to step outside yourself, not harshly, but honestly? A wise man running an empire, Marcus Aurelius, wrote nightly reflections not to impress others, but to examine his own conduct. He was emperor of Rome, yet he treated his mind as a kingdom needing order. Why should your life be treated with less care? A Stoic treats every moment as a study. The way you speak, the way you listen, the way you fill silence, all of it reveals your training. Watch yourself like a craftsman inspecting his tools. Observe, refine, repeat. Don't judge, just notice. That noticing is gold. Epictetus trained his students not merely in theory, but in this daily vigilance. Portia, he called it, the attention of the soul. Without that, he said, even wisdom decays into pride. Now let's make it practical. Tomorrow, live as though you are being quietly studied, not by others, but by virtue itself. Imagine your day as a documentary about who you are when no one is watching. Every glance, every pause, every reaction is evidence. Then, at night, review the footage in your mind. What would a stranger conclude about you? Would they see composure or chaos, kindness or ego, authenticity or performance? At first, this practice will sting. You'll see habits you've excused for years. You'll cringe at how often you speak to impress or bend your values to belong. But stay with it, because slowly you'll begin to drop the act. You'll start aligning with something real. You'll build a life so honest that even a stranger observing you would feel something rare, respect. That's when the Stoic path changes from theory to transformation. You stop trying to control how others see you. You start mastering how you see yourself. And then, paradoxically, the world begins to respond. Not because you've changed your image, but because you've purified your essence. This is what real confidence looks like. It's not walking into a room thinking, I'm better than everyone here. It's walking in knowing your strengths, your flaws, and still feeling whole. That kind of presence doesn't demand attention, it commands it. Not by noise, but by weight, by truth. When you reach that point, your words carry something that can't be faked: clarity. You speak less, but everything you say lands. You move less, but everything you do matters. You no longer guess who you are. You know, because you've watched, because you've listened, because you've adjusted. And one night, you'll look back at your day and say, that was me, and I'm proud of that. So the next time someone criticizes you or life confronts you with discomfort, pause, step outside yourself, observe, ask, is this the kind of person I admire? If not, change, even a little. Because zero growth remains zero. But a small step each day compounds into something extraordinary. In the Stoic world, that's all that matters. Not perfection, but progress. Not performance, but alignment. And when you finally see yourself clearly, without flattery, without fear, you'll notice something profound. The mystery of how others perceive you disappears. Because when your inner world aligns with truth, the outer world reflects it back. From here, another door opens. Once you've learned to observe yourself, to walk with quiet honesty, the next step is mastery. How to use your silence, your words, your pauses to move others without ever trying. And that is where we go next. Advancing to the third chapter, imagine standing in a crowded room where voices overlap like crashing waves. Everyone's talking, laughing, explaining, proving, yet beneath all that noise, there's something louder than speech, the silence that no one can bear. You can feel it, thick in the air, waiting to be filled. Most people rush to escape it. The Stoic doesn't. The Stoic listens to it. Because silence, when understood, is not absence, it's power. Silence makes people nervous. That's why most conversations today are bloated with filler words, awkward laughter, and long trails of explanations that lead nowhere. The modern tongue fears quiet the way the weak fear truth. The moment a pause stretches, someone panics and rushes to fill it. But here's what the Stoics knew: silence isn't a failure in conversation, it's a test of presence, and the one who can hold it without flinching controls the rhythm of the room. Epictetus once said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." But how many truly listen anymore? We hear the sound of words but miss the current beneath, the hesitation, the insecurity, the need. Silence reveals those things. It strips the performance away and leaves only what's real. Let me show you. There was once a young lawyer fresh out of school. Bright mind, restless tongue. He was invited to sit in on a negotiation between 2 powerful men. His mentor gave him a single instruction: do not speak. Halfway through the meeting, one of the CEOs made an aggressive offer and then stopped talking. The silence hung heavy. The other man shifted in his chair, uncomfortable, and after just a few seconds began to speak, to justify himself, to explain, to sweeten the deal. He offered concessions that hadn't even been requested. The meeting ended quickly. The deal was won. The young lawyer walked out, stunned. It wasn't intellect that won that day. It wasn't charm, it was silence, deliberate, patient, unshakable silence. The lesson stayed with him for life, because what silence does to others is simple. It exposes them. When you stop talking, they start revealing. They fill the gap with their intentions, their fears, their ego. And if you're calm enough, still enough, you'll see it all. That's what makes silence such a weapon, not because it dominates, but because it reveals. The Stoics saw silence as active, not passive. It's not retreat, it's discipline. It's the art of being fully present without the need to prove you are. When you pause, you announce something quietly. I'm not ruled by reaction. You signal control, and control is felt more than heard. In your next conversation, try this. Before responding, pause for 2 seconds. Just 2. Let the silence breathe. Let it make them wonder what you're thinking. You'll see it immediately. People lean in, they over-explain, they start showing you who they are. Because silence feels like a mirror, and most can't bear their own reflection. And in that moment, something else happens. You change too. Those 2 seconds pull you out of reactivity. You gain a moment to ask yourself, why am I about to say this? Is this truth? Or is this ego trying to speak? You begin to hear not just the words being said, but the intention beneath them. And once you understand intention, you understand everything. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice. That includes conversations. When someone tries to provoke you through arrogance, manipulation, or pride, your silence becomes your shield." The untrained mind thinks the Stoic pauses because he is unsure. In truth, he pauses because he is free to choose, free to decide whether this moment deserves a response, whether it serves peace or vanity. And often within that pause, the need to respond dies. But silence isn't only defense, it's design. Think of a sculptor chiseling marble. The shape of the statue comes not from what is carved away, but from the space that's left. The same applies to speech. The pauses shape the power of your words. Too many people speak as if silence will expose their weakness. They don't realize that silence is what gives words weight. A person who can let silence hang without flinching owns the room. Let me ask you this. Do you over-explain even when no one asked for clarification? Do you laugh to smooth over tension even when nothing was funny? Do you speak too quickly as if silence will betray your nerves? If so, you're not alone. But every unnecessary word is a withdrawal from your account of composure. Every rushed response is a chance wasted to hold your ground. Here's another story. A woman named Elise worked in customer relations, always kind, always fast, always trying to please. Her mentor once told her, "You don't need to fill every silence. Let it do some of the work." So during her next difficult call, when an angry client finished venting, Elise didn't rush to fix it. She said nothing, calm, still, waiting. The silence stretched. The client, unsettled, spoke again, softer this time, more honest. By the end, he thanked her not just for the solution, but for her calm. That's the magic of silence. It invites truth to step forward. Make no mistake, mastering silence takes strength. Your ego will fight it. It will whisper, "Say something, fill the void, prove yourself." But hold the line. Let the pause breathe. Because the longer you can sit in silence, the stronger your presence becomes. People aren't just afraid of silence, they respect those who aren't. And here's where it deepens. When you master silence with others, you start mastering it within yourself. The external quiet begins to mirror an inner stillness. You stop needing to chase validation with your voice. You stop fearing awkwardness. You stop fleeing from your own company. And that's when silence becomes something holy. In a world that mistakes volume for value, the silent one stands apart. Not mysterious, but sovereign. You speak only when your words carry more meaning than your stillness. Sometimes they don't. And that's fine. Sometimes the strongest move is to say nothing at all. Remember this. A perfect sentence might impress someone for a moment, but a perfect pause will stay with them for years. Because a pause is felt, it lingers. It gives your words a shadow, a shape, a presence that echoes after you're gone. So in your next conversation, pause before you answer. Watch how others react to the silence. Listen to what they reveal when they think you're simply thinking. Let your stillness become contrast in a world addicted to noise. Let it speak for you. Because when you can hold silence comfortably, you don't just speak with clarity, you exist with it. People begin to treat you differently, not because you demand respect, but because your calm creates space for it. And now that you've learned to see others clearly, to observe yourself honestly, and to speak with the intention of silence, there's one more step. It's time to lift your sight beyond people, to the patterns that govern them. To see not just reactions, but the rhythm behind them. To read not just moments, but movements. From here you no longer respond to life, you anticipate it. You begin to move not as a participant in the noise, but as the conductor of its silence. And that is how you become untouchable. At this stage, imagine standing at the edge of your own life, watching it flow like a river. Most people only feel the splash. They miss the rhythm beneath the surface. They call it chaos, but it's not. The Stoics knew life repeats itself in quiet cycles. Words, choices, habits, all echo what came before. The question is, have you trained yourself to see it? Right now, something is unfolding in your life that you don't fully see. Not because it's hidden, but because your mind isn't yet still enough to notice. Seneca said, "Fate leads the willing and drags the unwilling." Fate, to the Stoic, isn't a chain, it's a rhythm. When you fight it, you struggle. When you understand it, you move with grace. The wise don't resist what happens. They study how it happens. They read life like music. Think of someone you see often. Maybe they visit the same cafe every morning, order the same drink, sit in the same spot. To most, that's just habit. But to someone observant, it's a pattern, a rhythm of behavior that reveals predictability, even vulnerability. You understand their flow, and you can step into it, not to control, but to connect. You remember their order one morning, offer it before they ask. Instantly they open up, not because you impressed them, but because you noticed them. Awareness is attention turned into art. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." It's not ambition, it's alignment. Life rewards those who move with its nature, not against it. The same rule applies in high-stakes moments. Picture a negotiation. Across the table sits someone proud, dominant, always needing to win. The Stoic doesn't argue. He remembers something small that was said before. "I don't care about price. I just want to be first." That one phrase reveals everything. Ego, not reason, drives this person. So the Stoic aligns his words, not to flatter, but to fit the rhythm. This deal will reach you first. No pressure, no manipulation, just understanding. And in that calm precision, the deal is done. That's not trickery, it's mastery, the kind that comes from stillness. But awareness is a blade that cuts both ways. Used without virtue, it becomes deceit. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." The Stoic sees patterns not to exploit, but to harmonize. Because insight without integrity corrupts. And it's not just others you must study, it's yourself. You are a collection of rhythms, fears that repeat, habits that loop, thoughts that circle back to the same places. Anxiety before a crowd, peace after solitude, procrastination in uncertainty, all patterns. Most never see them because they're too busy reacting. They call it personality when it's really repetition. If you always stumble in the same way, it's not fate punishing you, it's you refusing to learn the rhythm of your own nature. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality, but we also suffer from the same mistakes because we never stop to watch them happen." The Stoic sees and adjusts. Slowly, quietly, daily. Start small. Notice when your energy fades. Notice who drains you, who steadies you. Notice which places sharpen your mind and which dull it. Awareness is a map. Every observation marks a route. The more you trace it, the clearer the path becomes. Then turn outward. Watch people, not with judgment, but curiosity. In meetings, who speaks first? Who waits? Who constantly seeks approval? Who changes tone when power enters the room? People reveal themselves in their patterns. The one who always laughs too loud hides insecurity. The one who always interrupts hides fear of invisibility. The one who blames everyone hides weakness. When you start seeing beyond words, the world looks different. The Stoic doesn't react to what just happened. He sees what always happens. That's how he stays calm while others are drowning in impulse. But this requires patience. Patterns aren't loud. They unfold slowly, like constellations. The untrained mind wants instant answers. The disciplined mind waits. While others play the next move, the Stoic studies the whole board. Here's a practice. Think of one person who confuses you. Don't confront them. Just observe for 2 weeks. Watch how they react when challenged. What topics make them retreat? What compliments make them soften? You're not judging, you're mapping. By the end, you'll understand them better than they understand themselves. Now imagine expanding that awareness to everyone you meet. You stop living one move at a time and start living 10 moves ahead. You begin to anticipate, not because you're clever, but because you're conscious. Others chase moments. You see cycles. Others react. You respond with precision. But remember, wisdom without virtue becomes poison. If you use what you see to manipulate, you'll rot from within. Use awareness not to control, but to align. The Stoic doesn't impose order. He recognizes it. There's a saying in the world of commerce, enter the conversation already happening in the customer's mind. The Stoic goes further. Enter the rhythm already happening in life itself. Don't fight the current. Learn its flow. Don't force people. Understand their timing. Harmony is power disguised as humility. When you act from this place, you no longer fear uncertainty. You don't need to predict outcomes. You move with what is. You stop needing to control everything because you've learned to read everything. The Stoics called this living according to nature, the deepest form of wisdom. When you understand rhythm, you stop wrestling with the moment. You step into it fully, quietly, decisively. You move not as a pawn of circumstance, but as its calm observer. And from that stillness comes the rarest power of all, the kind that doesn't dominate but endures. You don't rise by controlling others. You rise by reading the rhythm within and walking it with grace. When you learn to see without reacting, when you begin to notice what moves beneath the surface, something in you changes. You stop being pulled by noise and start moving with intention. You start to recognize that wisdom has nothing to prove, and clarity never raises its voice. That is where real power lives, not in being seen, but in seeing. Most people are caught in motion, chasing validation, arguing for attention, mistaking noise for progress. But the one who observes quietly shapes the flow without forcing it. The one who listens deeply understands before speaking. The one who pauses holds more control than the one who rushes to respond. This is the silent edge that Stoic strength gives you. It does not shout. It does not demand. It simply stands unshaken. When you learn to observe patterns without judgment, you start to see how the world reveals itself to the calm. You see the same situations that once triggered you now invite reflection. You begin to move with grace instead of reaction. You see how people expose their intentions through rhythm, how silence becomes your teacher, and how stillness becomes your strength. In a world that moves too fast, awareness becomes your armor. If these words reached you, take a quiet moment before you leave. Reflect on where in your life you could replace reaction with observation. If this message spoke to something within you, consider joining this journey of growth. Subscribe not for the noise of more content, but as a simple act of intention, a reminder to keep returning to stillness. In the comments, write "Stay aware" as your quiet vow to see more and react less. Because each time you choose awareness over impulse, you sharpen your mind and strengthen your presence. Growth does not happen in the noise. It happens in the calm decisions that no one else notices, in the moments when you choose discipline over distraction, patience over pride. Keep walking this path of quiet mastery. Stay grounded, stay aware, and in the next lesson, we will go even deeper into the art of moving through any room with calm authority. Your journey toward inner command has only begun.